Hi, this is Carrie Hummingbird, and this is Soul Nectar Show, that show that explores essence by telling stories about it, telling our personal stories as if we're sitting around the campfire and just sharing our stories of our connection to that which is bigger than us. And that's how we learn best, is by catching that frequency and that vibe from someone else's story. So today, I'm really excited to have Satyen Raja, founder and president of Warrior Sage, is a widely respected living synthesis of Eastern wisdom and Western practicality, combining the power of the warrior and the wisdom of the sage. Welcome, Satyen.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited about being here, Carrie. Thank you.
Yay. So a little bit more about you. He's a lifetime black belt martial artist. My hubby is as well. So totally
Awesome.
got you there. I can see you. He's a penetrating, real visionary who compels his clients to harness their greatest obstacles and transform them into their most powerful gifts. And he draws from realms of unparalleled techniques of life mastery, his profound life experience, and his natural ability to navigate beyond societal, cultural, and conditioned identities to attain peak consciousness. And I'm totally aligned with you there as well. I'm a student of the Toltec practices, and I love being the artist of my own dream. So, just a little bit more, you've invested over 3 decades in hands-on research and led workshops to tens of thousands of individuals internationally on the art of true power. So you can just tell by looking at him that his style is dramatic and not for the timid. I think you can feel his presence at this point. I know I can. I felt it when we first talked on the phone. It was like, okay, this man's all business. He's like, let's get down to the spiritual growth. Let's talk about it. So, as a matter of fact, we just kind of connected and we're like, yes, this is a go. And then we're on the call. So tell me, I'm really intrigued to hear the story, your story of, how you got on this path. What was your profound moment, that connected you in? Share from your heart, what you think, what you feel people would really benefit from on this call.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Carrie.
Hmm.
My story, in essence, I was born in Uganda, Africa. My parents are East Indian, Gujarati, Western Indian, Western part of India. And I moved to Canada when I was very young, at 7. And from a very early age, I was very interested in metaphysics and spirituality and awakening. I had a deep interest in enlightenment. So I would dive into books on Zen and Zen koans, which are unanswerable. What is the sound of one hand clapping? I would dive into these type of teachings, which when I was a kid, I saw my parents doing Hindu rituals, which is, very beautiful to see. But I didn't understand what they meant. And when I asked my parents, when you turn the candle this way, why can't we do it counterclockwise? Like any young person questioning their parents. And they didn't really have a sufficient answer. For them, it was part of a cultural thing. They learned it. But I really wanted to know. So I started rejecting the formal religious aspects in a way. And I was more interested in what's the spiritual truth behind it. I didn't reject the spirituality. I rejected the forms. And when you're young, you tend to reject things and, be a little bit hot and steamy about it. That's how I was. And that led me on a path. And I was very blessed. When I was about 12, I was really drawn. I saw this TV show, Kung Fu, with David Carradine.
Yes. With
the whole, that one?
With the pot, and he's like, and he has like the burning marks on his hands. I was just talking about that last night.
Right?
Yeah.
So when I saw that show, I was I don't know, 11 or 10 or 11, I'm not sure. But I was moved and in a full-on past life recall.
Wow.
I knew I was part of the Shaolin temple. I just knew it. I didn't have any associations really to it before. And then when I saw that show, I knew it was a show. I knew it's a TV and not totally authentic, but the energy of the philosophies, the sacredness, the idea of a martial warriors, I just went, whoa. And I was totally unathletic at that time, like no physical acumen, totally a geek, a nerd, more in my own inner domain. I was not outward going. I was more inward. And then I also saw Bruce Lee around the same time, his movies. And
Wow, that just probably lit you up like crazy.
so here's this TV show with Shaolin Kung Fu masters espousing these beautiful, deep teachings on how to be a person of peace, tranquility, harmony, equilibrium, and a lover of humanity. And then here I see Bruce Lee with this incredible skill and personality that jumps off. Even to this day, I'm a fan because when I see a movie, it's like he's still alive. Like his essence and his presence is so magnanimous, right? So I was enthralled. And this all happened within a short period of time. And then I said to my parents, my dad, I want to like find a Kung Fu master. I was about 12 and they thought I was, you know, right? And so they were, okay, son, go ahead and find something close. And I didn't want to find any, I wanted to find a genuine Kung Fu master. And at that time, there's no internet or anything. So I looked in the yellow pages we had at the time, and I collected all the yellow pages from the postal office of all the neighboring towns around Toronto and all the suburb towns, which is where I lived near Toronto. And finally, after going through a stack of these in the yellow pages, I found one that immediately stood out. All the others were kick punches to the head and all these ads and crazy ads, and I didn't have a resonance with them. But then there was this one with such a graceful movement of this master standing there, and it had a beautiful poetic prose there, and I went, and I called, and as soon as the head instructor, it wasn't the master, picked up the phone, my soul just went, yeah.
Oh, that is so beautiful. At 11 years old, you knew that.
About 12.
Wow.
And it turned out that it was on the other side of the city.
Oh, of course. Your parents are like, thank you.
My parents were like, find something close. They didn't know the difference between any martial art, right?
No.
And anyways, I begged my dad for over, I don't know, a couple of months, please take me, at least let me go for, because it was by personal interview. It wasn't, hey, trying to enroll me on the spot. It was like, no, you got to come and.
Of course, because it's all about alignment and getting the right student with the right teacher, with the right master.
He conceded and took me for a drive. And he thought, well, I'll take you here, but it's crazy. You won't be able to enroll because I'm not going to be able to. Bus rides about 2 to 3 hours, in public transit. But when I went, I couldn't leave. I had found my spiritual home. I had found a genuine temple of the soul, and with great mentors who were, they were like these guys in this TV show. They were like a combination of Bruce Lee and Kwai Chang Caine. The wisdom of the sage and the power of the warrior. I saw it right there. And that's what I decided I wanted my life to be around. So I was very blessed to have that in my life. And I stayed in that for many, many years. And I ultimately grew to have my own school and become my own instructor and teacher. So it was over 20 years of pretty hardcore dedication. And I did whatever it took, when I was 12, I had to take the bus in 2-3 hours one way and then try to get rides back. Whatever it took, every time was a journey to get there. Just to
get there. What dedication at such an early age. But it sounds like what you're saying is you felt so connected with it. And that's the thing about when we finally find that essence place, that connection to our alignment to our essence, to the vibration that we are, we want to stay there. We want to keep with that. We don't want to be away from it.
And so that was my humble beginnings, and I dove into that, and I had my school, and then later in my 20s I started diving deep into many other mystical traditions and spiritual traditions, because that started becoming more and more interesting to me. And I went and became a shiatsu therapist as well at 17, and did that. I had martial arts at the same time, and did acupuncture, and when I was 18.
Wow.
And so I started, and then I just dove into these, my teachers taught me, they said, if you're going to learn this power of killing, the power of the warrior, you have to also learn how to love and heal and bring light to the world. You have to have both, or you'll be out of balance. You'll be out of equilibrium. And so I really took that to heart. So that set me on a journey to deepen my understanding of martial arts as two aspects: self-perfection and self-preservation. Self-preservation, we know about the idea of defending yourself, but the idea of continuous self-perfection, there's no rival, that I can grow my body, my mind, my emotions, my spirit, and become better for not only myself and my family, but for society. That was the essence of Shaolin Kung Fu, is how can we become a better conduit of life, of love, of wisdom, so that we become a harmonious player in this great existence. And that set me on a journey, and I'm still on that journey.
Yeah.
There's no arrival.
Well, you know, what I've noticed is it seems like people are in our culture. I mean, I'm in the United States, and so there's a slight difference between Canada and the United States, but you know, it just seems like we're concerned with the preservation aspects. You know, we understand as parents, I'm a parent, and I've known many parents along the way, and it's like they understood the premise of like, let's teach our kids self-defense. Let's like, martial arts is great because it'll teach them self-defense and it'll teach them discipline. But you never really hear them talk about, oh, it will teach them how to, you know, to tap into their inner energy and find their way through life. Like it'll give them an internal navigation system. Like you don't hear people talking about that. You hear them talking about, oh, well, he can, you know, he can defend himself and he's strong and he's disciplined and he can keep out there and keep like the warrior part. Like they're all focused on the warrior, but they're not focused on the sage.
Unfortunately, you know, many things have gone that way in the world, where the outer strength and outer power, call it even egoic power, is worshipped even nowadays. We look at people, the more shallower things are, more superficial is launched up and valued and praised, and what at one time was valued is no longer, you know, like depth, heart, depth, D-E-P-T-H, the depth of our being. People who are deep are now ridiculed. Oh, that's way too deep. That's, you know, like, just meet me where I'm at. And there's in a way, the honoring of depth. You know, at one time in culture, the ones who had the greatest depth, kings and emperors, would seek out, you know, men and women with great depth as to advise them in their direction in life. And that's not even heard of now. Now it's all tactical. It's nothing about depth. And so I feel this is one of the most powerful things that we in culture, we can bring the outer stuff of life. We just got to bring it. There's nothing wrong with all that stuff. We just got to bring the depth that's in the background, make that more of a value, and bring the superficial stuff or life accumulation stuff or getting stuff back. Pull it back. Don't let go of that desire. Just have it as the background. Have depth be our goal. How can I be a deeper being? How can I be more of a fulfilled being? And it's just asking, having value, knowing that is valuable. That is valuable to nourish your soul. It is valuable to grow as a human. It's profoundly valuable to be a better individual and to seek harmony and peace and equilibrium. Doesn't sound sexy as six packs and building yourself up and looking a certain way, but in a way it's spiritually sexy.
It's extremely spiritually sexy. You know, I think that depth is, when I found the deep end of the pool, I was like, wow. I mean, all these mystical experiences and things happen there, awarenesses, sensations, and most of all, like this incredible sense of peace and well-being. Like all is well. And I think I never really felt that way until I had awareness my whole life of this deeper presence within me. I always was aware of it. I felt it there, sort of like encompassing or looking through my eyes or something. But I would go about my day and kind of close myself off from that and focus more on, you know, what are the real world tasks I'm doing, or what's the money I want to bring in, or what's the dinner I want to go have. And at some point right when I had children, right before I had children, it was like the dining out had gotten so unsatisfying. and I was living in the Bay Area, and my ex-husband and I had been dining, you know, we were always dining out and going to dinner, and we'd become like, go to these really fancy restaurants where people like take the little scraper afterwards and scrape the crumbs off the table and the whole thing. And at first that was really gratifying, but after you do that for a few years, it's like, what's next? You know, how can I make myself feel good now? And, you know, it was like, that wasn't satisfying anymore. And the other side of me was an artist. So that I found way more fulfillment doing that and being lost in time and painting like outdoors and trying to capture what I was seeing. You know, it's total presence, right? You're in the moment, you're looking, you're perceiving, you're translating through you onto the canvas. Now you are in the present moment, you're completely immersed in this space and you lose yourself in it, which is a relief, you know, especially when you have a busy mind like the one I've had my whole life, you know? So, I mean, that's what set me off on my path. And my pursuit of art actually is what did this with me and my husband, my ex-husband. Because the more I went down the path of art, the more I was like, that fulfills me. And the more he was like, but I think you should go, if you don't want to be a technical writer, then how about if you go be a realtor? Or what about a lawyer? Or what about a, you know, anything that would make money and anything that would have status. But being an artist, mm-mm.
Yes.
And I think our culture is this way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I'm glad there's people like you, you know, who are bringing out and transmitting that there's value in this other mystical realm where it's found within our inner domain, our inner dimension. There's a cultivation of that. And you know what's paradoxical? You know, when what I do now, you know, I coach. My main work right now is I hold two coaching circles. I coach healing professionals, helping professionals, and I work with CEOs of prominent, life-changing, world-changing companies. And what I have found is that when I dial and coach and help these folks, especially people who are dealing with lots of things and responsibilities, dealing with many millions of dollars in transactions every day, they need to have depth. If they stay in their realm of doing and busyness and in the realm of the mind, they can attain things, they can accomplish things in the outer world, but then their families are suffering, their relationships suffer, their health suffers, they lose connection with the spirit of life, the joy of life. You know, the idea of smelling the roses now, being in the now. All of these beautiful spiritual principles are lost when we're continuously being pushed. You know, I was on, you know, the internet on my Facebook page, and the ads and the articles that are coming up and the videos all about, you know, crushing it. Crush it and crush it. And this, I like the idea of peak performance, but I actually believe that peak performance is killing us.
You know, it's so funny you just said that, because on my Facebook feed is like a whole lot of, you know, ascend and transcend, and, you know, how can you meditate better, and how can you get a deeper awareness? You know, I think Facebook is targeting to us, but it's interesting because that brings out a really good point, is that how can we have a cross section where some people maybe are only on that track of crush it and are really experiencing burnout and you know, health problems, and now they're turning to pharmaceuticals, and reach them with this message of no, you really don't need the pharmaceuticals. Skills, not pills. You know, like, learn the new skills, and you won't need those pills, because the skills are going to the deeper place. The skills are going into the right brain. You know, the right brain's hanging out all day going, hey, I'm here anytime you want to use me. You know, and everyone's like, I'm with my left brain, I can't hang out with you. You know, like, we just bring them together.
Exactly. The synthesis of our spectrum. You know, for me, you know, I was a full-on peak performance guy for many years, pushing myself and developing myself in my martial arts and my business, and growing my businesses and my trainings and my company, which I grew, you know, in the human potential world, you know, to giving 90 plus events internationally per year, and a team of 30, and multi-million-dollar business. And I was pushing and pushing, and that's what I thought I should be doing. I thought that was the heroic standard. And that's what I was operating. I was operating and challenging myself and aiming to be some type of hero. And then obviously getting off on the praise and getting off on the lifestyle of being a rock star and all that. All of that was great, but it has a time and a season and a value. It was valuable. And then a few years back, I realized, I ended up almost dead in a drowning accident in one of my retreats in Hawaii. I went swimming and crazy thing happened. And anyways, I miraculously survived. And after that, I went into a total rescripting of my values. It wasn't even in my head. I didn't say, I'm going to change, look at it. It just happened. Sometimes when you get close to the edge of life and death, there's in the Toltec wisdoms, as you know, the idea is that death is on the left-hand side, breathing down. And rather than fear death, feel it, feel death, make death an ally, a motivation, right? So I made death an ally. And then I decided I'm going to shift things and put my, not go for one area of strength, but create an equilibrium. Where my faith in myself, faith in the universe, my family and my relationships, my fitness and vitality, my finances are all in equilibrium, and I'm having fun. These things I call the freedoms: faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. That one of my mentors, Kevin Nations, taught me. This idea of these freedoms, I brought deeply into my life, and I have to say that is a whole other level now that I'm enjoying, that I'm wishing to impart and share, and share upon those good listeners here to get that. What if you were to make equilibrium, these freedoms, faith, family, finance, fitness, and think of them as strands of a rope. You just can't have one part strong. They all got to work together to make a strong, solid rope that can lift one higher and higher. I didn't value that as a younger man, but I have to tell you, I value it deeply now. And it's changed my whole relationship with my wife and my kids. And I'm healthier now. And I make less money, but I have less to do. And so I have less expenses.
Yeah. And, it's kind of like you can't take it with you. So what can you take with you? You can take all the experiences with you. I mean, for the last 6 years, as I've deepened on this path, and I've had like incredible experiences on these retreats and studying like with the four winds and studying with the power path and going on all these journeys and, experimenting with meditation and different kinds of journeys with plant medicine in the jungle and things like that. It's just like, wow, like life took on this 500 dimensions, and I thought it was just this one. And now that when I'm in that one, I'm like, that's so boring, like so many other dimensions. Like there's just this profound, and in the stillness is all of that. It's everything in the stillness too. It's like you can have the experience and that's really amazing and it opens you. And then you can come back into the center and just, oh, wow. And then too, like the mundane can become interesting again, like sitting in front of the computer and getting back to like, okay, I'm going to make it happen. That's fine for a couple of days. It's like good,
Exactly.
Right. You can sit down and power through it and then let that go. Cause that's also a lie,
Yeah.
It's just
Beautiful.
not true. So, here's what I think keeps people from the journey. First of all, we've got to get it beaten out of us to question authority. Like, and even in America, because the way they do it in America is kind of like, because we all complain about our parents, and so we're like the spoiled children that don't want to listen to, we want to rebel against our parents. So I think that we do it to ourselves though. Then we judge each other, so we've got this whole system of like what's cool, what's not. Fashion, TV, entertainment, and all of that visual media keeps you conformed to a standard of living that everyone else is doing, so it must be right. Then who checks in? How do we get people to stop doing that and come in here?
I'll tell you what I've done. there was a time in my life where I used to look at this, where I started waking up and I started seeing, all the things that you just spoke about, right? The surface of life. One of my teachers said, when you're looking to change your life, before you change the outside, deepen yourself. And that koan, that instruction is deepened. It means more and more to me every day. And paradoxically, the deepening makes my external success even more profound and aligned. Clients come with so much more ease because I'm coming from a place of depth. As you know, as we all know here, intuitively, instinctually, or we've had our own experiences, that this is an actual mirror reality. The emanations of our soul, the mirror smiles back immediately with our regular mirrors, but there is a micro time delay, the speed of light, and we can't catch it as a human, but there is a slight delay. But in this universe, it's delayed a little bit more. So sometimes we think we're putting out this emanation. How come it hasn't come back yet? Well, because we're not steady, sustained in the emanation of depth, of joy, of what we truly want. What are the things that we want? So one of the things I start off with the folks I coach, some of them who have millions, is I say, okay, let's put aside earning for a sec, and we look at, what are you earning for?
Yes. Why? The big question, why? If you don't know that, why?
And then there's thing goals, and then there's experiences. Experiences that, like you said earlier, we get to carry with us, and I believe get to grow our consciousness in continuous dimensions of existence. And so if we know that now, even intuitively, one of the first places I start with all my folks is, what are the life experiences that your soul wants to have? Because I just want to go on a vacation to blah, blah. Okay, cool.
My soul wants to go on a vacation. Okay, which you is speaking, and this is something I've been working with people on, because I finally grasped it. And so I'm like, okay, listen, there's the soul, the essence, that which is bigger than us, that we're connected, that we are part of. And then there's like this allowance for this idea of some being that's separate. It's just an allowance. It's like, I'm creating you and I'm letting you believe that you're separate and that you're in charge, because I love you and I want you to have everything you think you want. But it's not real. It's like, so much of it is an illusion. And I try to get people to see that, and they tell me I'm too deep. So I don't know how to bridge that gap. I'm working to show people, like, listen, you're both, and the realist you is the one that's deep and wide when you quiet your mind and sit back and you feel that, like, the latest explanation I have is when you go snorkeling and you're in the reefs, that's the ego. That's like the personality. And then it's when you get out to that point where the reefs part and then the ocean's out there.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people, when they face that ocean, they go, whoa, I'm turning back. I don't know what's out there.
We recoil from our depth, because our depth itself is phantomless. And that phantomless, it's like you were talking about the pool earlier today. I have a swimming pool in the backyard here. It's not super deep, but the deep end is about 6.5 feet. And I'm 6 feet, so I can't touch the bottom when I'm at the deep end unless I sink. Now it could be 100 feet, it could be 1,000 feet. It doesn't matter. Once it's past your feet, it's deep. But if it's very deep and you can't tell, even though the shallow end is right next door, there is a feeling of ominousness facing the grand abyss. In the Toltec tradition, they talk about facing the abyss, and the abyss of depth, the abyss of the unknown. And what I've come to realize is that depth, that abyss, is actually my very self.
Yes. And we're afraid of ourselves. Did you see how ironic that is? So ironic. why are we, and we're not afraid of ourselves. The ego is afraid of ourself. You know, the ego is the one, the self that we're being.
Well, I'm going to give you an interesting concept from my philosophy, okay?
Please do, because I'm like, I love this topic right now. I'm all invested in it.
I actually don't even refer to I don't even actually think there's ego. This flies in the face of most spiritual teachings, teachers, philosophies. I don't think there's an ego.
I think it's a construct.
I don't even think it's that.
You don't think so?
No, I think it's just, there's just us, just you, just me. And that we anthropomorphize this concept of an ego to replace old Judeo-Christian ideas of a devil or a demon or something within us that's divisive. It's a good teaching tool up to a certain degree, but when you get to a certain degree and you realize, shit, there's only me. So when I'm being when I'm being a jerk or
that's me being a jerk.
it's me. It's not my ego.
I can't blame it on somebody else.
It's me. And when I'm being angelic and conscious and awake and beautiful, that's me. So for me, it's always the self. And this idea of an ego is a psychological, spiritual scapegoat that's created to relieve the pressure of the responsibility of owning that you are the devil and the light. You are the dark and the I am, and I could choose and be what I need to be and conscript myself to be in the moment. And when I'm coming, now we can use the term ego from a psychological standard, meaning a constellation of unfulfilled emotional energetics, like you wanted to be loved by your parents and get praise and acknowledgement. They didn't give you enough, so we're looking for that praise and acknowledgement unconsciously now from friends, society, our partners, our lovers, and we don't realize we're like hoarding. We're looking for that praise in an unconscious way, which then creates a balancing force and pushes people away because we're needy for their attention. It's a weird thing, but this is what happens. That is one example. There's examples in relationship. I just shared examples with money where we feel, you know what, I don't deserve. I haven't done the right thing. I don't know if I have enough within myself to deserve, to earn what I have. And we call all these things ego, mind, whatever. Great, and those are great teaching tools. My philosophy is, screw it. What if it's just you? Just me. That level of dialing in and not scapegoating into some part of myself, it has to bring you into the moment. You can't blame mom and dad. You can't blame unresolved family dynamics. You can't blame what happened on planet Zeton 23 million years ago when you were born as some
spirit guide that told you to do it.
None of it. There is no projection when there is no ego.
You know, okay, so I was having another conversation with GP Walsh about this, and he brought me to this place of really trying to see this, and I see it. The ego, like that idea of who we think we are, the identity, the personality, I like to call it the personality, you know, that's just I fabricated it. I created stories like in my subconscious or whatever, stories got created, and then I kept telling the stories, and that kept it alive. And at some point I realized I could change the story, and that's what my awakening was. I wrote a book about my process of changing my life story from the inside out. It's awakening to me. I changed who I was. I said, okay, I am not this. I'm Carrie Hummingbird. Okay, well, what would Carrie Hummingbird do? Oh, well, Carrie Hummingbird would do this, and I just changed. I became a different actor. I mean, a different character in my own screenplay. And that's what the Toltec talk about, really, essentially. It's like you get to choose with awareness. You can become aware of what's in your subconscious because it's being reflected to you out in the world. And you can go, oh, that piece, I created that. I don't want that anymore. Let me change it. And is that what you're talking about when I say that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, what I'm saying is there's a chooser of the identity we wish to present. So the problem is not the identity. The problem is in the fixation of the identity. So let me give you an example, okay? For years, I'd be doing my seminars and work and, and coaching and business. Then I'd come home to my wife but I would stay stuck in that identity, and I would be the coach, facilitator, business guy around her, and that turned her off. And I thought I'm being helpful, and because I maintained that identity. I didn't vacate that identity. Now what I do is I vacate that identity and I embody myself in the identity of a loving husband. Before I would be at home, be with my wife and kids, and then couldn't shut off the business mind, thinking I got to handle this, and because I was stuck still in that identity without releasing it. For me, wisdom, the path of the warrior sage, is being able to pick up, drop, and embody identities at will based on the highest frequency of use of that identity in relationship. When I'm with my children, I'm in the identity of father. I don't want to be in the identity of husband. It's a different relationship. I don't want to be in the identity of businessman because it's a different identity. So for me, mastery is the ability to enter and exit identities at will based on what's required of the circumstance.
Which requires non-attachment.
Yes.
But it also requires awareness of what that identity is. And the language I was taught was role. So if you're taking on a role,
yes,
you've defined what that role is. And so you also have ability to choose how you want to define the role, not based on how you were domesticated to think it should be, but how you choose to bring yourself forward in that way.
Exactly. The way I look at an identity is an identity is a viewpoint with a goal. A viewpoint with a goal. So if I'm in my identity now is of a trainer. I'm feeling myself a trainer, a guide, sharing my story. That's my identity right now in this moment. Every identity or viewpoint has a goal. What's my goal? Well, if I were to feel into why I'm here, my goal is to transmit and share good things I've learned in my life to help whoever's listening. So every identity has a goal. If we know that, then we can choose, okay, what's my goal? Okay, my goal is to be I want to be an amazing wife, sexy, juicy wife, or I want to be, my goal is I want to have a stellar relationship with my partner. I reverse engineer it. I go, what's the identity I need to fulfill that goal? I don't focus on the goal. I focus on the identity that I need to be. So if I want to be a speaker and a trainer and be successful at it, I can focus on the goal, which is to make impact, make a livelihood, do what I love to do in the world. All of that is great. Once I've got what the goal is, I backtrack. What's the best identity to wear? What's the style? Right? Every day we come out, I look in my closet. I can wear it. Today I'm wearing my Bruce Lee shirt. And Bruce Lee, today I'm wearing my UFC Bruce Lee shirt because I really felt I wanted to be in my martial identity, my warrior sage entity. Now, I may not wear this if I'm going out tonight on a date with my wife. She's seen me enough as a martial artist. Doesn't really jazz her really anymore. She's but if my goal is to give her a ravishing, beautiful, sexy evening, that's my goal. What's the identity I have to be in? Well, the identity of Satyen in his deepest Casanova presence, bringing my presence as a lover, not just as a husband, but as a lover. So I enter my identity as a lover. When we can know what we want in life and we have goals and then backtrack, I, as a divine individual with choice, an infinite being, infinite, I have, you have, we all have the capacity to choose the identity that will fulfill that goal. That to me is one of the subtle secrets which magnifies the attention and the response from the cosmos itself. because the cosmos wants to respond to your identity.
It does. And I like this. I like this for a couple of reasons. One thing is because I've done it. It's like, yeah, I've done that. The second reason is because I like it because it's in relationship with other people. It's in relationship. You're not just you, like I'm me and deal with it. You're like feeling, I don't know, I get the sense you're feeling. You're empathically reaching out to the person and feeling what do they need from me right now and what am I willing to give right now? And then you're making that negotiation, which is what relationship is. It's showing up with my full heart, present with what you need, present with what I need, and then, having that that's a relationship. So I like that too. So the last question is, what's authentic though? All of it? Every face we show is authentic? What's
I feel if we're choosing it conscientiously, our identity, it's authentic.
in every moment what we're choosing is authentic, and it doesn't have to all match?
No. When we are in authenticity comes from when we're mixed in what identities we should hold. I want to be a spiritually oriented, heart open being. Okay. I want to be a successful business person doing well with money and my time freedom. Now, if there's a conflict in the mind around that, because we've got an imprint that spirituality does not equal the gain of money or success, because there's a lot of good evidence that shows that there's people out there who go for money aren't necessarily end up being spiritually awake and loving. It's not always the case, but because we hear the bad ones, we have those imprints. That's a conflict between identities. The identity of a spiritual being and the identity of a business expert, someone who, with great reach. Another identity disharmony may be, okay, I love myself. I love my private time. I love that I get to have this spaciousness in my life because I really need it. And then there's another part that's like, I wish to make an impact in the world and touch many lives. So privacy versus prominence.
You know what I'm getting from what you're saying? It's sinking in. We're always in internal relationship between the different identities that live within us.
Exactly.
And then we just carry that into the world. When we're better at having those internal relationships and awareness about, bringing love to all of it, then we can bring that out into the world.
When we can choose the identity of someone who's spiritually awake and successful, as an example in this dichotomy, someone who happens to hold both, and we choose that identity, because if we don't go to the identity level, we'll try to sort it out on the psychological level, which never works.
Yeah, it's a mind tunnel. It's like thought tunnels and mind mazes. You lose yourself in there for decades.
Endless.
It's like psychotherapy couches. I did that 20 years, never doing that again. Thank you.
So that's the essence of, for me, the philosophy on how to attain real goals. Now, let's dive deeper, if you'd like, into what is real goals. What are the goals? For me, real goals, the ones that are the most nourishing to my life, are when my soul and mind are in unity towards that goal. And how that's felt is a deep comfort in my body and a thumbs up from my mind. There's some personal growth schools that say, just follow your heart, your soul. Forget the mind. Shut the mind off. The mind is your enemy. The mind is the ego. No mind. Many methods to shut the mind off. And then there's other schools, which are more rational-based schools, which are trust your mind, cultivate discernment, cultivate the power of your thoughts, and don't just go on your emotions, because if you do, you may join a cult and drink Kool-Aid because they were following their emotions. They were following their feelings. Look where it ended up them. If they were rational, following their mind, they would have left a long time ago thinking, this is stupid. What am I, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the warrior sage, soul and mind unity is what I found is the highest operational navigation center in myself. So I'll feel for the comfort if I'm making a business decision, even a simple one like what to eat today for lunch or whatever. I'm going to feel into the comfort in my soul as well as the okay in my mind. If I just get the okay in the mind, I remember once where I had this business deal, this fellow, this is years ago, 20 years ago, and the guy on paper was stellar. And my wife's, and I was like, I wanted to grow this franchise that I had. And when he showed me his thing, I was like, okay, we're going to do really well. He can do all this work. My mind, but my gut, I just put it aside. Whereas my wife went, all her indicators went, this guy, something's off here. I pushed that aside. I only listened to my mind, and I didn't take in my wife's feedback of her discomfort in the soul. She couldn't put it in words because she saw the same thing I did. Well, within a matter of a few weeks, this person was embezzling and trying to
Wow.
ruin my company. So I learned that way that I needed to have not only the mind be okay, but the soul. And also not only the soul okay, and then the mind not be.
Yeah, because, you know, there's lots of ways at tapping into your intuition and your heart. And I remember my heart was leading me all kinds of places after my divorce. And I went to my first class with Alberto Vialdo at the Four Winds.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I said, hey, you know, I feel like I should, it was the South, you know, so we're really peeling back the layers of domestication and belief and the falseness. And I was really unsure of myself. And I said, you know, my heart says I should really go to Peru, but I don't know what to do because I've been doing, you know, I'm not sure I can trust my heart. And he looked at me, you know, and he looked past me because he can see things about you when just looking just off to the side. And he comes back and he says, yeah, your heart's gotten you in a lot of trouble, but you should trust your heart. It knows what to do. But I actually did end up going on that trip, and it was a great decision. But you know, the heart can lead you some places, and you can think it's your heart, but actually it's some kind of, you know, some sort of subconscious need that's not getting filled. That's, you know, if you're not, when you first start tapping into your heart wisdom, you can get confused, is what I'm trying to say. It takes a little effort and time to figure it
It's
out.
a journey of discernment and maturation process to even start to trust those indicators which are nonverbal and have been atrophied. That feeling sense of our soul and mind, soul and heart and mind unity, just even to know that it's even there, just hearing it, one can become more aware of it. We haven't been taught this, right? So therefore it's not our immediate go-to to feel our comfort of our soul and mind. But I got to tell you, that's my basic navigation tool. And when I'm just following that, literally, the universe seems to just continuously be the greatest Santa Claus on the planet.
Oh, but it's such a Santa Claus. I told people that ocean vision I was giving you the other day. I was like, okay, so I was on a call and I said, okay, now when you go out to the ocean, it feels scary at first. Like, face it. It's so deep and wide. I don't know what's out there. Okay, now imagine there's a zillion little presents hidden out there in the ocean for you. Now watch. How do you feel now? Right? It just flipped. Christmas morning, it's out there. I want to go get that stuff. What is out there? That's the perspective shift. It's always love. You know, on the other side of the fear, false evidence appearing real, is love. It's always love. Every time.
You know, we're sharing this, and I'm sure everyone who's listening is getting something. Their mind is understanding this. But what's deeper that's happening in this connection here, whatever time you come in on, whether it's in real time or any time, whenever you're listening to this, because this is here forever now, there's a deeper transmission of what we're talking about. In fact, what we're talking about is the transmission.
Yes, it's coming through the words and the vibration. And our heart's aligning, you know, because there is no time and space. I tell people that too, and they go, what are you talking about? I'm in this body. And I'm like, no, kind of. Quantum physics shows us that. So, yeah.
I'm going to invite everyone to really drink of the vibration of soul and mind unity, of knowing that you can consciously choose the identity you wish to have, to manifest or to move towards a goal that brings you true joy and true fulfillment, and that aligns your soul and mind. The transmission, even the beginning of this is enough. The how arises out of the yearning to live this way.
Mm.
It's not you need to know how first and then you'll live this way. It's the yearning to live this way, which presents the detail of the how. That's what's beautiful and mystical and magical and natural about what we're sharing here.
Absolutely. You don't need to know the details. And as a matter of fact, trying to figure out the details will block it. Yeah. I learned that one. Learn from me. Don't figure out how. Just say yes.
Just do it.
Just do it. So I have another little great mantra that I use to create possibility. So you can visualize the ocean and you can visualize all those little presents out there waiting for you. And then you can say, "Dear universe, surprise me with how much you love me."
Oh, it's beautiful. Say it again.
"Dear universe, surprise me with how much you love me."
Oh.
I've been using that one for years and it's working really well. So I thought I would share.
Thank you. I'm going to take that into today.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for this call and for tuning in and sharing all your wisdom. And I want to give you a moment to just share anything that you have going on in your business that you want to share, or how people can connect with you, anything you want to share.
Thank you. Well, may I suggest, I've created a very simple assessment, what I call a peak, not performance, but peak existence assessment based on the path of the warrior sage. And it's assessment to really see where you stand in the realm of power, personal power, the realm of love, your manifestation of love, the manifestation of your freedom, true freedom, inner and outer freedom, your ability to flow in reality, and your ability to cultivate and create wisdom. So these are what I call really the symbols of peak existence: is power, love, freedom, flow, and wisdom. So I've created this assessment that you can do online, and you can find that at warriorsage.com, WARRIORSAGE, warriorsage.com. So go on there, and once you do that assessment, you'll be part of our community, and you'll be invited to my private Facebook page where I chat on many of these things, and we have a wonderful community, international community, regarding our Warrior Sage work. And then also on that website, you can see the new things that we're up to. We have some very powerful events and retreats that we do. And after that assessment, we can then see what would be the best thing to guide you towards.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you. This is such a beautiful conversation. Thank you for engaging in it. And I know that everybody is going to enjoy this whenever they get to see it. And I just want to close out with kisses. So if you want to join me, you can, but I always give people kisses. Love you guys. See you next week.